I fell into a relationship at 16. By 18, I was pregnant, and I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. Now, this is 1972, so before Roe v. Wade in the States, and I lived in New Jersey at the time, and abortion was illegal. So I went to New York because I didn't know what to do. I remember going to Planned Parenthood in New Jersey, and they asked me, do you want this baby or not? They didn't counsel me, they didn't do anything. And I thought, well, I can't. I want to be a Broadway star. I have my whole life ahead of me. My family will kill me. I can't let anyone know. So they booked me an appointment in New York. I went in, and the saddest thing to me is I remember the doctor saying to me, it's a good thing you came in this week. Had you waited 1 week, you would have been 4 months pregnant, and I wouldn't have been able to do that particular procedure. So at the time, I didn't fully grasp what it meant, but today I know. And here's the other thing. I held this secret for 46 years. You know, we talk about the God Dare. My most recent God Dare was putting that chapter in the book, because when I started writing this book 8 years ago, I was too afraid to even mention this, but the Lord just started pressing me last year. It was like, you need to talk about this. You need to set yourself free from the guilt and shame. And when you realize that 1 out of 3 women have had an abortion, there's a lot of us that have held on to this secret for many, many years, and it's just time to just set that free. You set yourself free when you can see that God can redeem anything. I know now that I'm forgiven, I'm redeemed, I'm set free. I know God loves me. I have no fear of that. And I have no fear of telling this story anymore, because if it will set one woman free, then I've done my job. And I just knew that was part of why the Lord wanted me to put this in the book, because so many women have dealt with this, and so many men have been a part of this. So it was just something I couldn't say no to the Lord on this.
Okay, well, we're going to take a quick break. You then enter into the Broadway world.
Yeah.
And you end up starring in The King and I with Yul Brynner, doing very well, so a lot of success. But in that journey, it's kind of one of your first God dares. You encounter God, first of all, and maybe you can share that story, but also that he challenges you to leave this world.
Yeah, he did. After The King and I, well, I met my husband on The King and I. He was the associate conductor, and we truly fell in love across the footlights, because I just saw him down in the orchestra pit, and I had to have him. So we met, we got married after I left the show. Then we got saved. We met the Lord together on the same night. We had a dear friend who is a born-again Jewish gal who kept inviting us to church. She just kept inviting us, and we kept saying no. She kept inviting us. Finally, you can't say no every time. Right. So we finally said, okay, we'll go on a Friday night. She said, you'll love the music. And we went, and it was just incredible. We both got saved on the same night. God just knew it was our time. We met him, and then we had our daughter about a year later, and about a year after that, God just started stirring in our hearts as we were really beginning to follow him and learn who he was, read the Bible, go to church regularly. And he just gave us both an unease about the world that we were in. And we were doing well. We were both working in New York theater. He was conducting, doing all kinds of things. But God just started nudging our spirits to lay that down, walk away. We didn't know why. We didn't know what we were supposed to do. But we ended up laying down our careers, which everyone thought we were crazy, because when you're doing well in something, you don't just walk away from it. But God asked us to, just kind of like he did with Abram, to just say, leave everything you know and go to a place I'll show you. I'm not going to tell you, but I'll show you. And it was sort of like that with us, that we just walked away from that world, moved to New Jersey, still 45 minutes from Broadway, eventually moved to Florida when Franny was about 7. But yeah, it was just one of those crazy things, home business, homeschooling. And then I know now that it wasn't just about us. I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be a Broadway star. But a lot of times what I see God do is he'll allow your ceiling to become your child's floor. Yeah. And though we had all that experience in that world, we were able to help her navigate where God was going to take her, because God's always looking down the generations, don't you think? Yeah. It's not just about us. It's about our children, their children, and he's just looking down generations that we can't see, but he can see, and he knew the plan for her.
So explain the God Dare and the premise for what that means.
The God Dare, it's like a spiritual bungee jump. You're just, God's giving you this crazy, wonderful, terrifying idea that you think, God, there's no way I can do this. You've got to help me. You're calling me to do something that I'm not equipped to do. But if God calls you to it, he'll equip you to do it. And for me, I recognized that when I wrote my first book 8 years ago, when I had no writing experience, didn't graduate from college. Now I went to 4 colleges in 2 years, didn't graduate from any of them, so don't let that stop you. I had no platform, no one to publish it. Like, none of it made sense, but God was telling me, you're to write a book about what you did to raise your daughter to find her purpose. So I wrote the book. It was just crazy, but he equipped me to do it. And that's what a God dare is. It will be outside your comfort zone. It will cause you, blood, sweat, and tears really are going to typically accompany a God dare, because it's not always easy, but it will always change the world. And when you take a God dare, you can then call yourself by another name. I can now say, I'm an author, I'm a writer, I have my second book out. It makes no sense, and God dares won't, but I see it all through Scripture, and that's what I do in the book, is I connect parts of my story to just different biblical characters.
And parts of your story is infertility, struggling to have kids. You wanted to have a lot of children. Also a number of failed adoption attempts. And you admit that there was a time where you were just very angry at God, which led to depression and addiction to Xanax.
Yeah. Well, that was later on. That was more in these last few years.
Okay.
That was an anxiety thing that just fell on me, and the only way I knew how to get out of it was taking Xanax for a year, but that didn't work for me, so I'm not on that anymore. But with the infertility, it caused me to really question God. The thing I want is good. I want children. I'll raise them to follow you, Lord, and you're supposed to be a good father, and all the things. I had to learn to want God for who he is, not for what he gives. And that was a big lesson. It took me many years, because I just really fought with him over having only one child. I wanted more. We kept trying to adopt. Finally, I got it through my thick head that you're having one. And now the years have given me perspective. And I can look at my daughter's life, see the impact she's had, not just on music, but on people turning their hearts to the Lord because of hearing her songs and following her. So her path has been the right one, and we were to pour into her. And I see it now that had I had the 5 kids I thought I wanted, I wouldn't have been able to put into our daughter what she needed to accomplish the things God had for her. That's what I mean about the generations. He was looking at her, and now he's looking at her kids. What are they going to do? So I think it was all a part of it, but it did cause me to go through several years of just being angry at the Lord and not understanding, but he just had to get it through my head, and it took me a while. I get it now, but it was just a difficult time because I couldn't understand it.
Yeah. And now looking back at now seeing Francesca's success, what have you learned through that process of going through, again, as you said, failed, just wanting to have more children, even trying to adopt and that not working? What have you learned from her?
I think just that God's purposes are good. He knows so much better than we do. We think we know. We think we know what we want. And it may be valid, but if it's not his will, he's not going to give it to us no matter what we think. His will be done. So I think just to encourage anybody that's listening that's not getting that thing they want, really seek him out on what is his will for you? What does he really see? Because it just makes so much sense now in my life, but I have the years of perspective. And if you're in it and you're struggling with it, just try to find out, try to love him for who he is, not for what he can do for you. Because it's about, I just want my life to give him glory. I see what he's taken me from having an abortion at 18 to now being able to talk about it and talk about the other ways that God can dare us and change our lives so that we can change the world. Because I'm convinced we're all here to do that. If we'll take the God dare and do what he's calling us to do, jump out and do that scary thing.
Yeah. I think there are going to be people watching who feel like God is silent right now. And just trusting that he has something in store. Francesca's a perfect example of that. Your life, Kate, is a perfect example of that. Can you give a word of just encouragement to somebody that might be watching, sitting in that silence right now?
Oh, yeah. Silence, I think that's one of God's biggest training grounds, the desert, where you just can't hear anything, you can't see or feel. It's like, God, am I in trouble? Are you disciplining me? You don't like me anymore? What's going on? But I think what he does when he puts you in that place, he's drawing you deeper. He's saying, come out, come to the deep water where you can't feel your feet on the bottom. Come and let me carry you. You think you're being disciplined, but I'm teaching you. This is a time of deep teaching and training, and I want to know that you truly love me for who I am, and I'm going to let it be quiet for a while. And I think he does that with all of us if we're truly seeking to know him. He's got to take us into that place of total silence.